Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So this is my take on a homemade table saw, and if you're interested in making it, the free plans are in the description below. Documented the build and made the plans to share with hobbyists like me who doesn't want to spend a fortune or doesn't have a lot of tools in their disposal. Although this project is made simple by using basic tools and easy to find materials, this build is quite complex and may not be for the faint-hearted. I designed this table saw some years ago. Originally, it was supposed to be made out of all steel, and the overall design is a little bit more complicated than this. I toned it down quite a little bit to fit the budget, and also I don't have the tools for metal works and access to specialty hardwares to buy the proper materials. I referenced my design to one of mechanical animations of Tang1011046, that's the name of his channel by the way, linked in the description below. Here are all my tools. I don't have a lot, as you can see. These tools are mostly dirt cheap, and to some this may be a bit offensive. You can just skip this part of the video, it's not so entertaining. But for the benefit of others, I'm gonna swallow my pride and shamelessly show it off to the world. Probably one of the coolest part of this build is that I only use 3 power tools and common DIY hand tools. It's not going to break the bank and at the same time improve your building skills in the process if you do this. Allow me to show you the tools and materials one by one so you know exactly what you'll need. So let's begin with the list. Not shown here is the circular saw. Okay, router, drill, the hardwares, aluminum angle and aluminum flat bar, 2 different sizes. Those are the sizes. I use 3 types or 3 sizes of screws. These are the hardwares from left to right: washer, nut, a core nut, a long nut, machine bolted nut, insert nut and Allen bolt, threaded rod, steel pipes, 14mm and 16mm. I just group them like this to make it easier to understand. Make sure that the 14mm pipe fits exactly inside the 16mm pipe. Try hard to find one that fits exactly. If not, at least just 0.5mm smaller is tolerable. You also need bearing that has 12mm inside diameter to fit an M12 threaded rod. For the materials, plywood of course. Find the best plywood you can buy, especially for the top. It should be perfectly flat. And you also need files and chisels, drill bits, set of hole saw. This adjustable hole saw is handy, you should have one. 16mm Forstner bit for the 16mm pipe. Also a router straight bit, 4mm, I think this 5 or 4, and the bigger one about 8 or 10mm bit size. Hand saws, different kinds of hand saws. Sorry about the rust. You also need a shooting board, the layout, and measuring tools. You will also need screwdrivers, wrenches, and pliers. And scissors and utility knife. They say you can never have enough clamps, so I bought myself a few small extras. 2 small ones. Allen keys. And for the electrical, this is what you need, or you can buy a commercial paddle switch. That's much better. If you want to paint your table saw, you're gonna need some paints, and also this acrylic plexiglass, but this is optional. There are alternative materials to this, like plastic chopping board or PVC sheet. Glue, wood glue, 5-minute epoxy, CA glue, and construction glue. Sandpaper and tapes, and safety gears of course. So that's it. Let's talk about the plans real quick. The plans are available on both imperial and metric system. I am a metric user myself, and the build instruction refers to metric as well, of course. If you're an imperial user, please exercise due diligence, as I have not checked all the dimensions when I converted it. But I trust it's all correct. Except the Tronian plans, all plans are printable in A4, but you can still print them in any paper size you want. Just refer to the written dimensions when transferring layout onto the wood. All parts of the table saw have plans and isometrics and some details, except the crank handles, the tilt lock, some parts of the tilt mechanisms, and the paddle switch, and some small details. But all of those will be shown in the video, which I'll cover later. The Tronian drawing scale is 1:1. You can print them in A3 if you have a plotter, but A4 would be fine too. As you can see, I still fit in the print preview. At least you still get a basic shape or the actual size of the Tronians, and that will be enough, I think. Last note, I tried to simplify the drawings, and I hope it's not confusing to you. I would recommend not to try to understand them within 5 minutes. It can be overwhelming. Take your time, print out hard copies, drink coffee, tea, beer, goat's milk, tamarind shake, diet water, or anything that can make you relax, and you'll be fine. And do not forget to read the disclaimer in the front cover page. Sheet 00, okay? Please feel free to modify the base cabinet. I have not given that part a lot of attention. Put anything in there, storage or anything. I printed out all the drawings and pulled out the plans for the worktop, cabinet, carriage housing, dash chute, dash box. I'm going to start off by cutting down the plywood to manageable size. I'm using a straight edge as a guide for the circular saw. I clamp it down securely onto the plywood, cutting the larger parts down to the smaller pieces. By the way, I bought this cheap circular saw. Unfortunately, the base plate was skewed, so I ended up using the other edge of the plate. Cutting this way was uncomfortable and dangerous. After that first cut, I continued rip cutting the rest of the pieces on the floor. This is much safer and easier. Here I'm cutting the 4 cabinet panels, worktop, carriage housing, dash chute, and crosscut sled parts. This will be all ripping, and all the cross-cutting will be done in the crosscut sled, except the cabinet panels that I will cut here now to the exact sizes. So you should roughly estimate the sizes that will fit in your plywood stocks. Remember, cut the worktop first, as we need the front and the 2 sides perfectly square. Those sides are manufacturer's cut, so it should be square. Once I finish cutting down the big chunks of plywood, next is the worktop that I'm going to use as a temporary table saw. I set it up on top of my workbench and sawhorse. Here I'm marking the pencil lines for the 2 rabbets. These are the slots for the crosscut sled, measuring parallel against the edge of the plywood. These measurements are critical. As you can see, I've carefully checked a couple of times before marking the lines. Please make no mistake here. Then I mark up the line where the blade of the circular saw would be located. Now I'm preparing the circular saw to be attached under the worktop, making sure nothing's in the way of the blade. So here, I screwed it directly under the table, drilled through on the 4 corners of the plate. Just keep the blade parallel to the crosscut sled slots. Now I'm ready to pass the router for the 2 rabbets. Again, routing these slots is critical. Make sure that they are parallel against the edge of the plywood. I am also making a temporary crosscut sled so that I can use it to cut the plywood to the exact sizes. The depth would be around 620 mm to accommodate the bigger pieces. The fence on the front and back are roughly estimated for about 100 mm high. When attaching the crosscut sled fence, make sure to countersunk it and give it a light sanding so that it would slide easily. Ensure that the back fence and the groove in the middle are perfectly square and that the steel fence that's clamped on the worktop there on the right side of the table is parallel against the blade. Then I would just stop cutting just right there for about 100 mm away from cutting it all through. Then I attach the front rail and keeping it perpendicular to the blade or the groove in the middle of the sled. Then cut the groove all the way through and make sure that it slides smoothly. Now I'm going to attach the runners on the bottom of the sled, and I'm using some coins to lift the rails a little so I can glue them under. I used strips of solid wood for the runners. I applied some glue and gently put the crosscut sled over the rails and secure it with short nails after. I also attached a block of plywood at the back of the front fence as a sort of guard in case I push too far. Now I continue cutting the rest of the smaller pieces on the crosscut sled. This would be the carriage housing, dust chute, and others. I'm not gonna show you everything here, just imagine I cut them in the table saw or a hand saw. If it's a hole, then I simply drill them. I'm trying to make the video shorter. I'm just showing these clips for the benefit of new guys in the hobby. So here I transfer the dimension on this piece, in this case the carriage. It's pretty much straightforward. I use the bearing for this curve, but if you have circle templates or a compass, that would be great. I didn't mind at the time to make a jig. For this, I just tapped some nails to secure the pieces and mark the lines where I needed to cut. If you're a beginner, do not pull back if you're cutting these pieces the way I did. That's potential kickback right there. After each cut, stop and turn off the circular saw. You may need to keep the triangle cut-offs from these pieces, you're gonna use it for later. If you have a drill press, everything will be a lot easier. I'd recommend buying one if you have some cash to spare. Then I'm dry fitting the parts, then secured it temporarily with screws but no glue, not yet. This part is where the circular saw would go. I'll cut those notches later. Next is the cutting of the carriage housing parts. The carriage housing has an opening on the side to access the sliding mechanism. And for this cut, a jigsaw is really a good idea. I highly recommend, but you can pass on this and use a coping saw instead. And see you guys in the next video. I hope to see you there.